today, the 7th of July 2023, is the day that is being termed as Saba Saba, anticipation building on what is expected to be the Azimio la Umoja Coalition rally at Kamkunji grounds. What do we expect of that particular rally? It is a matter of wait and see how the day turns out to be. Of course, the protest, or rather the rally, being put together to claim what they say is injustices by the government, high taxation, as well as interest of the government being served first at the expense of the Kenyan people. What do we expect as the day unfolds? That is our conversation this morning. My guests already in our premises will be coming back with that shortly. But wherever you are watching us from, welcome aboard. We are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube at Kirk TV Kenya. My name is Chris Sambo, and as we always do, first things first, of course, it is a drizzling morning in the capital city. We take a look at what is happening on the roads and what exactly does our roads look like leading to the Central Business District. Right, and we just take a look at what is happening on the roads. And of course, major roads linking to the Central Business District, they don't look so much good because of that little drizzling that has awakened in this Friday morning. And I just begin taking a look at what the roads look like. And I begin with the major road, that is the Thika Superhighway, which looks so much good this morning, surprisingly, because I can see from my map here that there is little traffic at when you get to Muthaiga, that is where some little traffic builds up, but at least the traffic now looks much better this morning compared to other days when traffic builds up. Of course, it is also that aspect of the anticipated Saba Saba rally which could necessitate limited movement at the Thika Superhighway. And of course, turning on to look at Mombasa Road, which also looks so much good this morning. Surprisingly, all major roads such as Mombasa Road and Thika Superhighway, according to my map, look so much good this morning, especially when you get to see what is happening right after General Motors all the way to Nyayo National Stadium. Mombasa Road looks so much good. Only some little traffic when you get to the Haile Selassie Avenue. That is where you get some little traffic where it's building up getting into the Central Business District, but looks so much good this morning. And just taking a look at yet another road, that is Ngong Road, which looks so much good this morning as well, descending down to the Central Business District. Ngong Road doesn't look so much bad because you can see traffic flowing, you can see vehicles moving, but quite some different snarl-ups at different points, especially when you get to the traffic lights that are controlled and in that particular road. That is where you get some little bit of traffic. Just looking at Jogoo Road. Jogoo Road is only a road that doesn't look so much good this morning, especially just right after Makadara. Looks so much congested, traffic moving slowly. Of course, that being a necessity of the little drizzling that is happening in the capital city this morning. That is what Jogoo Road looks like. And Langata Road looks so much quite good this morning, especially when it comes to matters to do with the traffic flow of vehicles as you get to the Central Business District. And the Central Business District itself doesn't look so much bad this morning. If you get to see how it looks, there's limited movement. Of course, the fear factor, or rather the aspect of the anticipated opposition rally has quite turned out people from the Central Business District, because according to my map here, it doesn't look so much congested as usual, looking so much clean, except some slight movements in different parts of the capital city. And that is what the major roads look like this morning. Maybe we'll be turning an eye later on in the program to get to see what do they look like, as we also get to see how the day unfolds in matters to do with the anticipated Saba Saba protest. Will they be protest, or will they just be a normal day of calling out the government? That is what we'll be trying to evaluate in the next 1 hour 30 minutes as we take to talk about the state of the nations and what is necessitating this particular protest, what is necessitating the Azimio la Umoja coalition to make this move of calling out the government in the historical Sabasaba Day. That is our conversation this morning. But as we always do, first things first, up next is the newspaper review. Just a quick look at what the newspapers have written this morning. Let's begin with the Daily Nation. The Daily Nation talks about on its top page, politics of betrayal. We have no eternal allies and we have no perpetual enemies. Our interests are eternal and perpetual. The top page of the Daily Nation has faces there. Significant faces of former President Uhuru Kenyatta, President William Ruto, former President and now late Mwai Kibaki, late Daniel Arap Moi, and the late Jomo Kenyatta. Of course, the caption there being second nature of Kenya's political script is replete with scenes of deceit and betrayal, with many a politician often breaking agreements and throwing their close allies under the bus to protect their own interests. From our own founding fathers to the current crop of leaders playing dirty and nasty in the nature of the game. That is what the Daily Nation talks about, reflecting on the Sabasaba Day, that is today, from 1966 to 2022. There has been different scenarios of politics of betrayal, quite significant faces there being listed by the Daily Nation, and you need to grab your copy. And on pages 4 and 5 is where you get that particular story that is talking about the politics of betrayal. On the bottom of the Daily Nation talks about former Treasury official Tom Mokaya Osinde was killed at his home and then his body dumped in a river. Now that is the new statement by the detectives. And there is a story there, quite an interesting story in the evolving world of social media. Twitter rival Threads crosses 10 million users within hours of launch. The app went live on Apple and Android app stores in 100 countries on Wednesday. That is the ongoing rivalry between Twitter and the new app that is called the Thread and Kenya Comoros to lift visa rule. That is President William Ruto's visit in Comoros with his counterpart Azali Assoumani at Independence Day, and Ruto in that particular conversation with the president of the Comoros agreed to lift a visa rule between the two countries. Page 12 of the Daily Nation talks about will implement tea laws from next week, says Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who is now the face of the tea reforms that is being steered by the Kenya Kwanza government. Of course, that is what is written by the Daily Nation in matters to do with the top stories. Clash with police looms as Azimio holds protest. That is page 6 of the Daily Nation. That is what the daily papers are writing this morning. And of course, much has been written regarding the death of former Treasury official Tom Mokaya Osinde. On page 10 is where you get a glimpse of what the detectives have uncovered so far regarding the mysterious murder of that particular former Treasury official, Tom Musinde. And on the Standard newspaper talks about the top page revealed Ruto's radical CBC shakeup. New education, they talk about an exclusive story. New education reforms proposal seen by the Standard revealed drastic changes, including on competency-based curriculum, and will see a return of national exams, sky-high cost of implementing system, and scrapping off national schools, even as TSC's powers are eroded. with the ministry, assuming quality assurance function. That is a breakdown of what exactly the Standard is reporting. Quite an interesting and a top story there in regards to the CBC shakeup, and the Standard newspaper talks about categorization of schools, subject reduction, teachers, TAC, quality assurance, and new funding model that is expected to, capitate and move the CBC curricula. That is a story by the Standard newspaper. You can get a full in-depth of that story as you get your copy on pages 6, 7, 8, and 9. That is quite to show you. That is quite a big story there, a breakdown of quite a big story. And the Standard newspaper also talks about inside Azimio's plan for fresh protest against Kenya Kwanza, going down to give what is expected today. Pages 4, that is pages 4, talks about all that, and President team leans on reducing subjects, a return to national exams. That is a story by the Standard newspaper in regards to the shake-up, the CBC curriculum. And of course, there is so much that has been written in regards to the Saba protest, and 3 decades later, Kenyans still pay heavy price for mass protest. Ex-KTN editor Saba rally cut short my career. That is a story and a confession right there on pages 10 and 11 is where you get all that. And that is what the daily newspapers talk about, and the story on the tea reforms touched on page 14 of the Standard newspaper, which talks about the reforms that Gachagua, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, has steered to make sure that tea farmers and the tea industry eliminates all brokers and middlemen to ensure that farmers benefit directly from what they farm. And that is what the newspapers have written this morning. All right, and now we'll be taking a very short commercial break, but when we return back, we're coming back with our conversation this morning. My guest already in our studio premises. I will be talking about matters to do with the now Saba protest expected today. What is next? The standoff between the Kenya Kwanza government and the Azimio la Umoja coalition, Raila versus Ruto face-off in terms of what they want for the country or what Kenyans want for the country. We'll also be talking about the big blow to the government in regards to, the court ruling to stop the CS, the 50 CS appointed by President William Ruto. Up next is our conversation. Don't go far away. You can start streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, and also leave in your comment for us to have this particular conversation. I'll be back shortly. Don't go far away.
iguru rihinguke iguru rigirohingukira umuthi maundu maria mothe mahingikite mangirohinguka in the mighty name of Jesus. Nĩ tondũ wa ũmũndũ tũkoraga nĩ twaga kũhingia na koguo tũgakora maũndũ maitũ nĩ ma stagnate. Jehova Ngai, we uproot kĩrĩa gĩothe ũtahandĩte. Kĩrĩkanĩro kĩrauga thĩinĩ wa Mathayo 15 atĩ kĩrĩa gĩothe ũtahandĩte nĩ gĩkamunyũrwo.
kwenye makala ya Jukwaa la Moderator.
Tunapojiweka mbele katika mambo yote tunayofanya, huwa tumeenda kinyume na matakwa ya Mwenyezi Mungu. Hasira moja iliyokuwa na Mungu ni kuhusu watu wanaojipenda. Kazi ya Mungu inapaswa kupewa kipaumbele. Hivyo kuna uwezekano ya kwamba tukisikiza ushauri wa Mungu kwa njia inayofaa, tutakuwa sawa kwake, sababu Mungu ana rehema na anatupenda.
Jiunge na moderator wa kanisa la PCEA Mchungaji Thegu Mutahi kwa mahubiri, mafunzo na ufafanuzi wa masuala ibuka nchini, kila Jumapili ya kwanza ya kila mwezi saa 1:30 jioni. Hapa Kirk TV.
Tafakari njia zako.
Kahawa Farmers Kingdom Expo is an initiative of PCEA Kahawa Farmers with the aim of empowering Christian entrepreneurs by giving them an opportunity to network and connect with like-minded Christian entrepreneurs.
This is the opportunity that our church gives to our members and the community around, so that they can come, people can come and network. People come to showcase what the services they give and things that they sell. This is a business-based expo where, and within the Christian networking, where people come and show what they do, so that people can know when they want some things where they can get from the exhibitors and from the other people who are coming to see what the exhibitors have.
It features teachings on biblical entrepreneurship and exhibits an opportunity for Christian networking.
And as you are aware, many people were affected differently by the COVID situation. And among them were the business people, some of which are our members, community members. And we experienced a lot of questions and requests for people to do some displays within our church compound to tell people what they do. After receiving several requests, we realized that we could not give each individual a desk within the church compound. And that is why we came up with an idea to have a day whereby we bring all people that are interested to exhibit and they showcase what they do, to come out and present their commodities, their services to the church community and the community around us.
This year's edition will be open for all business people in all our Presbyterian congregations to showcase their institutions and market their members who are in business.
We want to welcome everybody, different kind of people. Like now we have APF, which will be exhibiting with us. Others have shown interest. So we have some bags which have shown interest to come and showcase. So everyone out there, come and showcase what you do.
We have structured exhibitors packages to cut across all levels of businesses, from corporates to the SMEs up to MSMEs.
Encourage you, Christian entrepreneurs, to join us on this day, to visit us, because there are benefits of going to expos. You'll be able to learn. If you're looking for ideas, you'll be able to get ideas from the exhibitors. If you are already in business, you'll be able to create contacts and network with other people who are already in business, and the visitors will have visited the expo.
Guided by our theme, Inspire, Connect and Network, derived from Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 18, our aim is to bring businesses together across the church and across all business sectors. Don't miss this very opportunity that will take place at PCEA Kahawa Farmers Church on Sunday 9th July from 10 a.m. Let's all meet and network.
Hi kids!
Start your day with inspiration and purpose. An opportunity to ignite your spirit, uplift your soul, and set the tone for a fulfilling day.
To rely on God and to wait on God, to trust in God, and never to waver, never to be shaken by what is happening around.
We invite you to embark on this sacred journey through inspiring sermons, prayers, and hymns.
What has been taken away from us, He is ready to lift us to another level. As we talk about the Lord's restoration, He is ready to repair.
Let it be your guiding light, leading you towards a deeper connection with your spirituality.
What matters is you don't go back one, you go forward, and you receive your mountain.
Tune in to the morning devotion, starting from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. on Kirk TV Signet and live on Facebook and YouTube at Kirk TV Kenya.
Hi kids. In the mighty name of Jesus. Na ithuĩ karĩko gaitũ nĩ tondũ wa ũmũndũ tũkoraga nĩ twaga kũhingia na koguo tũgakora maũndũ maitũ nĩ mastagnate. Jehova Ngai, we uproot kĩrĩa gĩothe ũtahandĩte. Kĩrĩkanĩro kĩrauga thĩinĩ wa Mathayo 15 atĩ kĩrĩa gĩothe ũtahandĩte nĩ gĩkamunyũrwo.
Kahawa Farmers Kingdom Expo is an initiative of PCAA Kahawa Farmers with the aim of empowering Christian entrepreneurs by giving them an opportunity to network and connect with like-minded Christian entrepreneurs.
This is the opportunity that our church gives to our members and the community around, so that they can come, people can come and network. People come to showcase what the services they give and things that they sell. This is a business-based expo where, and within the Christian networking, where people come and show what they do, so that people can know when they want some things where they can get from the exhibitors and from the other people who are coming to see what the exhibitors have.
It features teachings on biblical entrepreneurship and exhibits an opportunity for Christian networking.
And as you are aware, many people were affected differently by the COVID situation. And among them were the business people, some of which are our members, community members. And we experienced a lot of questions and requests for people to do some displays within our church compound to tell people what they do. After receiving several requests, we realized that we could not give each individual a desk within the church compound. And that is why we came up with an idea to have a day whereby we bring all people that are interested to exhibit and they showcase what they do, to come out and present their commodities, their services to the church community and the community around us.
This year's edition will be open for all business people in all our Presbyterian congregations to showcase their institutions and market their members who are in business.
We want to welcome everybody, different kind of people. Like now we have APF, which will be exhibiting with us. Others have shown interest. So we have some banks which have shown interest to come and showcase. So everyone out there, come and showcase what you do.
We have structured exhibitors packages to cut across all levels of businesses, from corporates to the SMEs up to MSMEs.
Encourage you, Christian entrepreneurs, to join us on this day, to visit us, because there are benefits of going to expos. You'll be able to learn. If you're looking for ideas, you'll be able to get ideas from the exhibitors. If you are already in business, you'll be able to create contacts and network with other people who are already in business, and the visitors will have visited the expo.
Guided by our theme, Inspire, Connect and Network, derived from Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 18, our aim is to bring businesses together across the church and across all business sectors. Don't miss this very opportunity that will take place at PCEA Kawa Farmers Church on Sunday 9th July from 10 a.m. Let's all meet and network.
You're right on time for our conversation this morning. There is so much that is expected to happen today, or rather an anticipation of what is the Friday of 7th of July expected to be the Azimio la Umoja coalition, which is opposition, calling for a rally at Kamukunji, at the historical Kamukunji grounds, on what they term as continued injustices by the government. What do you expect of the day that is expected to turn out in this cold Friday? Welcome aboard. We are streaming live on Facebook at Kirk TV Kenya and YouTube at Kirk TV Kenya. Our conversation this morning will be centered on what has been happening all through the week in terms of the state of the nation, and my guest already here in studio and my near right is Watima Kelly. He's also a politician and also a youth leader. Karibu sana this morning.
Thank you, Sambu.
And on the far right is Ashira Biko, is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Karibu sana.
Asante sana. And
good to see you all this morning.
Good to see you too.
Everyone has tried to brave the cold and try to maneuver the city.
Very cold,
extremely cold,
and raining.
And raining, yeah. And probably it's going to be worse than what we are experiencing this morning. We've just started the cold season.
The first week of July.
Yeah, the first week of July.
So we're heading to August.
But as you talk about the cold season, of course, not exactly what is happening in terms of the state of the nation and the landscape, the entire landscape of our politics and the governance and all that. Today is quite drizzling, it's quite cold, and we expect so much to happen, especially when you talk about the Azimio la Umoja coalition calling for a Saba rally. First, let's begin with you, Kelly. What do you make of today's move by the Azimio la Umoja coalition?
Thank you, Sambo. Actually, thank you for holding us, having us on this special day. It is a special day because it is Saba Movement Day that began on the same date in 1990. And we see the reason why it began. It began because of the multi-party status of the nation, and also because of the political freedom in terms of voting and all that. So it is a special day, and we thank you for having us today. So I think concerning the Azimio la Umoja movement rally today, it is also, for them, they have termed it as a historical day to start another liberation. Remember, when the day started in 1990, that was the second revelation. So they are calling this one a third revelation, and it is more centered on the economic aspect of the nation, So for them, it is a special day, and they want to mark the beginning. I remember before before this day, they had pronounced in the last rally they had that they're going to have maandamano almost every day or almost every week. So I think this is the day they are launching the maandamano, and the main cause or the main reason is the economic liberation of the nation. They are talking about the cost of living, the wage bill, the political status of the nation, and many other issues. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure. Talking about what exactly is leading to today's rather Saba commemoration by the opposition, is it as significant as it's supposed to be in terms of what they are advocating this Friday of Saba?
Chris, today is a very significant day, and not just to the members of Azimio, but to this country as a whole. Like my friend has said, the significance of this day draws its history from 30 years ago. And the push that was there 30 years ago on a day similar to today led to this country taking a very different trajectory in terms of its democracy. We moved from the single party state back in the days 30 years ago, and we got to multi-partyism. And the choosing of this day by the persons affiliated to Azimio may have been very strategic. If you look at the history of the maandamano post the elections in 2022, they've been testing the ground. They had the first maandamano, which had its own challenges and its own successes. They had the second maandamano, and of course, as at that time, President Ruto decided that they were going to go the bipartisan parliamentary, caucus way, which of course flopped. And from what I read in the papers and interact with my friends, it looks like negotiations are now off the table. The Azimio team is not willing to go back to the negotiating table because they're saying that government is coming to the negotiating table with dirty hands. And so what becomes of the day to day? What becomes of the day to day is a very serious exercise that has gotten the goodwill of not just the political class, but we are even seeing the civil society coming in. Mm-hmm. We are seeing religious organizations coming in. We are even seeing Kenyans who are initially or traditionally not supporting maandamano now coming in. And so today will be no other normal day, or today's maandamano will not just be like any other normal maandamano. It will be a special maandamano, and I'm waiting to see how it unfolds. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And talking about being a special maandamano, there's that argument that has been, we're talking about 1990 Saba and yes. 2023 Saba, but we're seeing also the same players who played the game in the 1990s also being part of.
Yes.
Does that mean also we are so stagnant in terms of evolving from what we were advocating then up to now? Now we still have the same players,
Yes, we still have the same players, but the issues are different. Yes, the issues are different. And the benefit that one gets from having the same players, having played for a very long time, is that they come with experience. And if we are to, anything that I was reading as of yesterday is anything to go by, you would realize that they continually want to have some of these faces that have been the that have been the cheerleaders or have been heading these mandamanos to get out of the way so that they introduce new faces. So yes, it is true we have the same players, but then the issues are different. And the only benefit that they would get from it is that these guys will come in with with vast experience on this is how we did it. When we did this, this is the trajectory that the agitation took. Did it fail? Was it successful, and so on and so forth. So the issues are different. The players may be the same, but not entirely actually, because we are having the likes of Atienda Molo that are coming in. They were not there in the 1992 Maandamano. I doubt if Martha Karua was there as at 1992. We have Eugene Wamalwa coming in. They were not there as at that time. So we have new players, probably apart from His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga. I doubt if there's any other face, because James Orengo was there, akina kijana Wamalwa was there, akina Matiba was there, Martin Shikuku. But then, so some of them have left. But then for the one or two that are there, I think they will play a very vital role in informing the young Turks that are coming in to support this same cause.
Talking about the young Turks,
I think just to add, and they are calling it the third abolition. And as you said, yes, we have the old faces, and I think the older face there is the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. But now they are calling it the final. And when you see yesterday's press conference, Raila was nowhere to be seen. We had young persons leading the way. So I think in a way, the issues are different. We have the same players, but again, they're introducing in new players slowly, because even the fight is not for the weak. You need to be groomed. You need to be made strong. You need to be led. And then now, when the old faces go, they'll be ready to take over.
When you talk about the young Turks, coming, members of parliament, also members of parliament from both the coalition Kenya Kwanza and Azimio Moja coming out to even call out their perceived leaders in terms of their conduct. But when we come and talk about a liberation of the country, we see now the young members of parliament trying to show up in the final cause, that is the protest. But where have they been, especially when you talk about what Azimio is advocating for? Advocating for the high cost of living. But when we look at what happened in Parliament, the members of Parliament, some of them staged a no-show in terms of policies, in terms of opposing what is now the Azimio la Umoja calling for the protest. We saw the voting. Some of them absconded the voting and even didn't show up at all.
Concerning the voting, especially when you look at it, whether they would come in or not, the other side of Kenya Kwanza was going to win the vote. So I think they were reluctant in a way that they maybe felt defeated, because when you saw the numbers, it was around 80 against 170 something. Those who did not go to Parliament that day, the young Turks that you are calling them, they were around 20 something, 20 to 30. So even if they were to come, add their numbers to 80, that is around 110 against 170 something. So I think it was just a reluctant move or a technical move, because they felt like it was already gone. Because when you saw the Kenya Kwanza team, they were saying, we are passing this thing without amendment, whether you like it or not. Even the president himself echoed the same remarks and said it is going to pass whether you like it or not. So if I were to defend them kidogo, I would say the fight was already over before even it began. Yeah.
But there was a very interesting thing, if you followed the Senate proceedings immediately thereafter. Was it the Senate proceedings or the National Parliament's proceedings? Immediately thereafter, there were several other motions that had been lined up for debate or for tabling in the House, and these motions were adjourned because there was no quorum in Parliament. It would speak to, in my very honest opinion, speak to the character of the politicians that we had, or the politicians that we have. These are politicians who stand for nothing. These are politicians who do not have their allegiance to Kenyans, but then to the head of the political parties that they affiliate themselves with. Because when they're supposed to be executing the mandates that Kenyans have elected them to execute in Parliament, They are not there. But then if there is a motion, or if there is a debate that that affects them individually as persons, or a debate that affects the political parties that they represent, they will show up in numbers, and then thereafter they disappear from parliament. So it even speaks to the to the kind of politicians that we have. Do we have political discipline? Do these politicians stand for anything? In my very honest opinion, they don't stand for anything. They actually stand for interests, whether it is the interest of the political parties that they represent, the interest of the coalitions that they represent, or even their own personal interests. So I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at all that some of the politicians absconded in their representation role to come in and vote for whatever bill it is that they were to vote for. I'm not even shocked that some politicians voted for the passage of the bill, and yet the other day we were seeing some of them in matatu stages trying to pay fare for persons going to town. It's not shocking. It is the typical politician's life in Kenya. It's not shocking at all. Yes.
I'm talking about it's not shocking at all. Hasn't me being honest, in terms of what they're presenting to the Kenyan people. I mean, everything they're calling out is the high cost of living and over taxation and all that. Are they being honest in terms of that? Because there's been that argument of that is the chase of endgame, and that endgame is not the Kenyan people.
Let me say it this way. Whether we are talking about the Kenya Kwanza coalition or the Azimio coalition, all these people are, over and above the interests of the Kenyans that they purport to push, they also have their own personal interests. Because like I've said before, political interest is very personal. So when the Azimio come in and say that they are organizing for the maandamano to support a particular agenda, let's say for instance this time round the agitation is around the price of living, or the cost of living. It is true that the cost of living has gone, has skyrocketed. It is up there, at the rooftop. But then, if we lift that veil on this discussion of, the skyrocketing cost of living, what are the undertones? Are they using this debate, or are they using this maandamano to push for an agenda that is purely political? Do they want? There are rumors that there are even signatures that are being collected for purposes of removing the president from that seat. Are they using it as a vehicle to push for their own political agenda? The answer to that is yes. And even as they push their own political agenda, are they going to achieve something that is beneficial or meaningful to the common mwananchi? Yes. So it is a give and take. It will be a win for the common mwananchi, because the probably from the agitation we are going to see prices of things going down. We are probably going to see some of these taxes that had been levied in the Finance Bill 2022-2023 being waived, or that bill being amended. But then at the end of the day, the politicians would want to use that process also for their own political gain. That is a reality that we should not shove under the carpet.
Just to add, I think over and above being honest or not, the Azimio la Umoja has a constitutional right as the opposition to advocate for the issues that they're advocating at the moment. If we all remember, during the handshake time, Kenyans cried and said, there is no one to fight for us. There is no voice for us. Even we had an opposition in government in the name of the deputy president coming out and saying, there is no opposition. Kenyans are suffering. So at the moment, now that the opposition is really strong and they're really agitating for the issues that they're putting on board, I think they have that constitutional right to do so. And in any case, if they don't do so, who will do it for the Kenyans? As he has said, every political outfit or party has their own interest. Even the players in it have their own interest. But over and above that, I think there's also some benefit that Kenyans will get after all these things are said and done. Like today, they are saying the cost of living is high, and I agree with them. Indeed, the cost of living are so high. And we need someone to tell the government that indeed fare imepanda, that indeed unga imepanda. If we don't tell them, and the way this government is behaving, just stamping, I don't think we will have a reasonable change in how our country is run and led. So we need the opposition. So we need them to do whatever they're doing for us to have a checked government.
And it's been talked about, you know, the Kenya Kwanza coalition has been telling the opposition that you're using the same script, you know, to play the same game over and over again. What is the end game, you know? We're talking about today Sabasaba being a protest day, and the script is already drawn. But from the initial scripts, the government is saying that we know this script, we know where it ends, and we are not going to fall for that trap. Are we going to see a different script this time around, or what is the end game, you know, of this move by the Azimio?
To be honest, I think the end game is all about the elections. As we know, it all began after the Supreme Court ruling. Someone accepted the results, but they said there are other ways that we can go and challenge these results, or the ruling, sorry. So I think the end game is all about the elections of our country and how fair they're supposed to be. And behind the elections, we have the issue called the server. So as you are saying that there's some end game, I think that is the end game. And we've heard that there are people collecting signatures somewhere. They want to do whatever they want to do. Again, that is their constitutional right to do that. They have that right to do that. But at the end of the day, I think the Azimio la Umoja coalition is focusing on the electrical election reforms, yeah? That is the end game. Yeah.
And the electoral reforms, much has been talked about that, especially when it comes to composition of the IEBC. And it's one of the factors that are actually stalled the bipartisan talks in terms of coming into an agreement. Is it that should be the priority, or should we turn the priority now and let the Azimio focus on maybe one or two things that directly affect the Kenyan people instead of, you know, carrying the whole sum of the bucket list?
I think the priority, as you said, it will be the cost of living, the insecurity. Actually, at the moment, our country is facing a lot of insecurity, both from the terrorists and the bandits in Baringo and South Rift. So I think there's Azimio la Umoja, in as much as they are fighting for the electoral justice, they should also focus on the issues affecting Mwananchi directly. And on the very, very top list will be the cost of living. If they can do something to lower the cost of the living, I think it will be good for Kenyans and a plus for all of us. Yes.
Sure. What can the opposition post this day of Sabasaba and the protests that are being planned and the roadmap that they are following? He's talking about Azimio should do something to lower the cost. What can they do?
Let me first start by weighing in on that first point that you talked about. If the present government would assume that and say that we know this script, we've been here before, we've managed the situation, then that is where they'll be getting it wrong. In fact, any complacency from this government of the activities of the Azimio coalition, or any protest that this coalition is going to be, or the Azimio coalition is going to be carrying moving forward, will be the Waterloo for this government. They should not think that it is business as usual. Like I've said, and as you have agreed, that the players in this game have been the same. They know what works and they know what does not work. They have experimented with different models of these protests, and they have seen the resultant effects. The unique thing about these protests is that they keep on mutating. The protests that were there the very first time that Azimio did its mandamano is not the same. It's not the same thing that is that is happening. That happened in the second time that they held their mandamano. It is not the same thing that is going to happen in the mandamano of today. Okay. Like I've said, the issues then are very different from the issues now. The players then were very different from the players right now. The strategy then was very different from the strategy that is going to be employed now and today. And so if there is going to be any form of complacency in the way the government is going to handle the agitation from this coalition that is the Azimio coalition, if they're going to use the same strategy expecting that they're going to achieve the same results, they are completely mistaken. So having said that, the mandamano that is being staged for today, like I've said, it's going to be a unique mandamano that is not going to be only political parties interest centered. It is a mandamano that has acquired or that has achieved the support of players even outside the political spheres. And so, in my understanding, we are going to have a full-blown mandamano, not just in Nairobi, because in the previous mandamanos we've had situations whereby it is only being either held in Nairobi alone and probably in parts of Nyanza. I know for a fact that there are civil society groups in Mombasa that are taking the day-to-day to agitate for lowering the cost of living. I even know that there are parts of Nyeri or parts of Central that are going to be participating in today's mandamano. Of course, in Nairobi, it will be the usual procession from whatever it is, because I'm very sure it's not going just to be localized in Kamukunji. Probably they are going to be they'll be moving from Kamukunji to some other destination that they haven't disclosed. So it is something that is resonating well with Kenyans insofar as the agenda for the mandamano today. The success or otherwise of the process that we are going to have today will dictate on the next movement or the next course of action that the Azimio coalition is going to take insofar as taking the agenda insofar as taking the agenda forward is concerned. So we as Kenyans are going to be on the lookout to see how the day-to-day turns out, because then it's going to inform not just the political trajectory that we are going to move as a country, but even our social lives and even the economic lives of Kenyans moving forward. Yes.
And someone would question, or rather the question would be, we expect what is expected to happen today and moving forward. But when you look at the current situation of the Kenyan people, is that the finance bill, or rather the Finance Act, has been the court stopped it from being implemented as it is, and someone would question, or the Kenyans would question, is it the right time for us to do this, or should we wait for the determination of the court on what is expected of that particular bill?
The finance bill has already been passed, right? For all intents and purposes, it's very alive, it's very active. Apart from the temporary orders that have been given by the court, for the court to hear out the parties and and make a determination on the same. The constitutionality of the finance bill or of sections of the finance bill will have to be determined by the court. Remember that the court is the final arbiter. I'm seeing the only problem that I'm seeing with that process is that we may have a derailed implementation of the act. Remember, the Finance Act is a money act. It is the one that dictates that if we are to implement a certain government project, then that government project has been allocated how much monies, and so on and so forth. And so, if, for instance, today the finance, the court says that certain sections of the Finance Act are unconstitutional, or they are, you know, they are not in tandem with the Constitution. And it freezes, or it says that the same should be expunged. The remainder of the act will still be implemented. But then, what does that speak to the momentum that the government would have insofar as implementing its activities? For me, I would have thought that instead of the government having taken hard stance and telling Kenyans that whether you like it or not, this bill is going to be passed into a law, they would have, they would have heard them out. They would have, they would have listened to them and said, well, now you are talking about, you are saying that moving the taxes, the fuel levy tax from 8% to 16%, you are not comfortable with it. Are you then comfortable with 10%? Can we do 12% in the meantime? Yeah. Can we then, in the subsequent bills, introduce these taxes progressively? Can we increase them progressively? Because at the end of the day, ile kutumia kifua, venye serikali inajaribu kutumia kifua, it is actually detrimental to them. They are supposed, this Finance Act is supposed to have been implemented from the beginning of this month. We are now on the 8th day of the new financial year, and we are not implementing it. We probably will take the whole of this month debating this Finance Act in court. And who assures you that once once the High Court makes a determination, no one will rush to the Court of Appeal, and even probably the Act will find itself in the Supreme Court. So that if we are to give it 1 month in the High Court, another 2 months in the Court of Appeal, another 1 or 2 months in the Supreme Court, we are already done with the year, and as a country we will not have done anything. So it is detrimental to us, much as the politicians want to run away with this and and try to impose it on Kenyans.
Again, on the same issue, the finance bill, I think Azimio has the right to undermine on the same. We saw the courts issue an order not to implement the bill, specifically on the 16% VAT levied on fuel. But again, what did EPRA do? They went ahead and implemented. In fact, Wakio Mtata is going back to court to demand for the arrest of the MD of EPRA for going against the court order. So at the end of the day, you see, going to court, yes, you will go and win. But again, is the government going to obey these court orders? That is the question. So if the government is not going to obey the court orders, what do we have as a solution to make them indeed follow the law and obey the court orders? Maandamano.
But when you talk about the opposition using its means to go to court and prolonging the implementation of this bill, the government is also arguing that by doing this, you're also limiting us from doing what we are supposed to do to Kenyans in terms of implementing critical parts of the bill.
I think you have the question, the chest-thumping aspect of the government. If the government wanted to implement the finance bill, whether as it is or as it was, they could have invited all stakeholders on board and listened to them. We saw they carried a public participation, yes. People went there and their views, but at the end of the day, their views, not all of the views were considered. They said, we can consider this, we can leave that, and we can take this and leave that. And then they now made the final, and they passed. If they could have called even the Azimio part and asked the way you said, if you want the 16%, what is good for Kenyans? 7%, 8%, I think it could have worked. So at the end of the day, the government will be losing, but it is their fault. They could have listened to everyone, had an understanding, and implemented this bill progressively. Sorry, not the bill, the bill, yeah.
Sambu, I'm looking at the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Under Article 1.2 or let me just read from Article 1 of the Constitution, Article 1:1, it says that all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised only in accordance with this Constitution. My interest is in Article 1:2, and this is what it says, that the people may exercise their sovereignty or their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representative. Now, as Mio have been beaten hands down through the process that is the representative role in Parliament. What have they decided to do? They have now decided to go for people power. And this is something that Martha Karua has been advocating for a very long time. The people power. And in the exercise of the people power, they have chosen to go the Maandamano route, the Maandamano way. And of course, and like I've said, this is a route that has been tested and it has been perfected.
And proven.
And it has been perfected. That when you are going back to the people, you go back to the people with, and you bring to them the issues that affect them directly. People, you bring to them issues that are very close to their heart. As at this time, as we are speaking right now, the thing that is very close to people's heart is the issue of the cost of living. And it has come at a very opportune moment when, one, we have passed the finance bill into an act. Two, for some reason, we have a very nascent government, or a government that is not very well, hawajapeleka mizizi vizuri. So things are a bit, after we came back from last year's last season's elections, we have it was a closely contested election where the Azimio coalition almost got the same number of votes with the same number of votes with the Kenya Kwanza, with the Kenya Kwanza alliance. And so we still have supporters that still believe in the cause of the Azimio team, much as we have the Kenya Kwanza team that is chest stamping and saying that they are in government. And so there are several factors that make this season or this moment to be the most opportune moment to push this agenda. That is the third liberation. And that is why I'm saying that the Kenya Kwanza coalition, or the government, the present administration, must be very wary of whatever is happening right now. They should be very wary. Yes.
Kelly, you want to say something
about being wary? They should be very wary because when they were campaigning, they appealed to the emotions of the hustlers, who are the majority, the youth of this country. And some of the issues that they were campaigning on, it was about the cost of living. It was about the cost of fuel. It was about the government. It was about BBI, if I remember. But when now they are in power, they are actually doing the same thing that they campaigned on or against.
Yes.
And now the youth, the Mwananchi, the Mamamboga, is seeing these things. And as you were saying, the Maandamano when they began, actually there was Azimio-related Maandamano. But at the moment, even Mamamboga is tempted to join the Maandamano because they are feeling the cost of living. They are feeling the cost of living as we speak. So even the youth, wherever we come from, they are speaking very bad about this government. They are saying, you promised us A, B, C, D, but you've not delivered. In fact, you're doing the opposite. So the government should be very wary because the same people that voted for them, especially in their regions, they are turning against them.
And let me just buttress this point. Chris, there is nothing as difficult as dealing with a human being or an animal that has lost hope.
Thank you.
If we used to crack a joke sometimes back, and we were saying that if you corner a cat in a room and you push it to the corner, the cat is going to retaliate because
Yeah.
it's not seeing any other avenue of
Yeah,
escaping
yeah,
from
yeah.
that corner. It is going to attack you. If Kenyans are going to be pushed like they have been pushed to the limits, that they don't have the very basic needs, they can't put food on the table, they do not have water, they do not have clothing, they do not have, the very basic needs in life, they surely are going to retaliate. And that retaliation would not, they wouldn't care whether they voted for you or they
Or
never
not.
voted for you.
Yeah.
And more especially when you gave them a promise, which promise you are now going against. And then you gave them hope, and you have suddenly taken away that
The
hope. It is very difficult to deal with a Kenyan or a human being that has lost hope. If there is one big mistake that the Kenya Kwanza government did, was to give Kenyans a false hope. And I can assure you, Chris, that it is not the business of Kenyans to hold the opposition to account. They don't have that obligations. They don't have that obligation whatsoever. The only people that have the mandate to be accountable to Kenyans is the present regime, the present administration. And so, if Kenyans are coming out and they are holding them to account, they are asking the hard questions, the Kenya Kwanza government should not turn around this card and now say that, you see, we are not accountable to Kenyans. We are not supposed to be asked about the issues of the high cost of living. We are not supposed to be, we are not supposed to be asked questions. We are supposed to be given time to implement. You told Kenyans during your campaigns that give us 6 months. We are going to implement 1, 2, 3. That immediately I put down this Bible, you guys are going to see changes. That immediately this one happens, you are going to see this, you are going to see XYZ and XYZ happening. But then, if you promise us to do something within the first 100 days of your coming into power, and Kenyans are not seeing it, aren't Kenyans supposed not to ask questions? Are they not supposed to question you as a government?
The government is saying, give us some little time, give us some more time, and we are going to do exactly what we talked about.
No, I don't think they need more time.
What do they need?
They just need to do what they promised us to do.
Exactly. And you see, the promises, you see, let me contextualize this, Chris. If these promises had been given by someone who was a rookie in politics, Kenyans would have understood. These promises were not made by any other ordinary Kenyan. These promises were made by the then sitting deputy president. It is the legitimate expectations of Kenyans that the president, as and when they were giving those promises, understood that they had the capacity to implement those promises, right? They understood that this is someone who's interacted with the government so much that they understand that when they promise you that within 6 months they'll be doing this, they understand where the money is for the implementation of whatever promises it is that they were giving was going to come from. They understood the capacity that they had to implement whatever it is that they were promising. They understood the players and the stakeholders that they would have involved in the implementation of whatever promises it is that they were giving to Kenyans. So, wholesomely, Kenyans are expecting that you had the capacity to implement whatever it is that you're giving to Kenyans. So when you now come and make a U-turn, you make a turnaround, and then now you're saying that give us more time. What does it speak to the integrity of you as a person, to the integrity of you as a president? That is the position that Kenyans find themselves in holding this government to account.
And I don't think this government is being honest and serious to the issues affecting Kenyans. And for that reason, they don't need more time to implement their manifesto, they are saying. Because what the first thing they did when they came to government was to allocate themselves positions. We can see them creating 50 CSs from nowhere. The constitution does not allow, they created that. the prime secretary, wherever, they created that. So they had the time to create for themselves positions. They had the time to make themselves feel comfortable in the office, but they had no time to address the issues affecting Mwananchi. So to be honest, I don't think this government is cares about the people of Kenya. All they care about is their political interest. 2027, actually they are strategizing for 2027 and many other political interests that they have fighting the opposition. But in terms of working for the Kenyan people, I don't think they were ready to do it. Yes.
In fact, Chris, even before you weigh in my whole life as a Kenyan, ever since I started participating actively in issues of politics and governance, I have never seen a regime that has gotten into power the very first time that they get into power, and they're so zealous about stealing the resources of Kenyans.
Yeah.
This has been the first government that has come into power, and it is so zealous not in implementing their manifesto and not in realizing the good for Kenyans other than accumulating of wealth.
Yeah.
We are dealing with a very unique, in fact, hii ni system ya majamba.
What would make you say, that particular statement?
This one, I can give you 1,000,001 examples. These guys get into government. Their first order of business is to compromise the judiciary. I will say compromise the judiciary because the first executive order that the president gave was the lifting of the charges that had been leveled against the judges. And then the very first appointment that he did
all the judges
was the appointment of the judges, very strategically. Remember that in the three arms of government, at any one given time, there are two arms of government that are led by politicians. That is the executive and parliament. And so the only other government arm that is supposed to be, the unique and the neutral arm of government is supposed to be the judiciary. And that was his first target, very strategically, very conveniently. And then thereafter, he told them that he was going to give them the judiciary fund. That they are, that so that they are, there is that autonomy in the judiciary, and so that was just a move to make them comfortable. So his first order of business was to compromise the judiciary, because he knew of his actions that were going to follow thereafter. And then thereafter, what happens? He now decides to give or to come up with positions that were unconstitutional. What my good friend here was talking about. He comes in with the with the prime cabinet secretary, the position that was given to Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, a position that doesn't exist anywhere in the laws of Kenya. He decides that now he's going to reward his cronies. They were all political rejects, and give them the caste positions. And then thereafter, what does he do? He decides that every other appointment that was done by President Uhuru Kenyatta before he left office, he was going to slash all of them. So he removed them out of from office and rewarded his political cronies. It is all about political self-interest for this government. And then thereafter, we now started seeing contracts being awarded to persons who are not even qualified to implement those contracts. We saw allocation of resources to projects that were not even of immediate concern to Kenyans, and we have seen borrowing within the first 6 months of the assumption of office of any government for this administration that we have never seen before. It is unprecedented. And so, all that I'm saying is that this is a government that did not have an agenda. And I said, and I remember the last time that I was in this studio, I said that this is a government that did not have an agenda or a good agenda of leading this country. In fact, it took them by surprise that they had won the elections. they are still reeling from that surprise. It is high time that they that we awaken them from that dream. And the only way that that can be done is by the opposition taking up its legitimate role to oversight the government, this very government. Yes.
Is it fair enough to say that the president and his team needs adequate time from what you look at the country as it is of now? Is it fair enough to say that they actually need time?
I don't know what you mean by saying they actually need more time. Because they're not yet an year into since being elected into office. I think they just have to wake up. Because, as you're saying, as he has also said, I've said before, they are already doing things as we speak. They're already using taxpayers' money as we speak. But now, they're not using it the right way. He has mentioned all of them. I don't need to go into that again. So why should we say, when it comes now to implementing issues and projects that are affecting directly Wananchi, in Wananchi, they need time when it comes to that? I think when we say they need time, it is not the right thing. They just need to wake up and realize that Kenyans are suffering. Kenyans need to see a change in this country, and they do it.
Chris, let us compare 2002-2003 to 2022-2023. We're exactly 10 years apart. When President Kibaki took over the reins of the leadership of this country, and when Ruto has taken over the reins of the leadership of this country. As of the time when President Kibaki was taking over government, we had an excess number of ministers, back in the days they were called ministers, being appointed for different ministerial roles. What was his first order of business? He cut that number tremendously to a manageable number. When President Kibaki got into government in the year 2002-2003, he decided that because we have so many foreign trips that are consuming a lot of Kenyan monies, taxpayers' money, he tremendously cut the number of foreign trips that government officials were doing abroad. When he realized that we have a lot of consumption of taxpayers' money in terms of, purchase of new furniture, new motor vehicles, that is now when he introduced that every government official is supposed to be using cars that are below 2,000 cc's. That is when the Passats were introduced.
Yeah.
Right? You could see a leader that is very strategic, that is very purposeful in ensuring that he brings down the cost of living, that he alleviates the standards of living of Kenyans. Chris, let me ask you a question. What has this government done for the last 6-7 months that is so visible that one would very confidently say that this is a mechanism that this government has put in place to ensure that things turn for the right? What is it that this government has done? Just tell me one single thing that this government has done. We need radical solutions for the problems that have visited on Kenyans. But what has this government done? Instead of coming up with these radical solutions, they have even decided to make it even worse for Kenyans.
True.
They have not done anything. Now we are concentrating on collection of more taxes from Kenyans. And like I've said before, that Kenya does not produce anything. We don't manufacture anything as a country. We don't like other countries. We don't produce oil. We are not mining gold in this country. We are not exporting anything of substance apart from our tea and coffee, and our workforce in Qatar and Dubai. We are not producing anything. We are not manufacturing anything. Now you are overtaxing Kenyans. Where do you want these monies? Where do you want these monies to come from? Lastly, let me tell you one thing. I want to give an analogy of you being in your house together with your wife and your 5 kids. Whatever you have in your pocket is 1,000 shillings. You as Chris. And then now you decide that in this house, I'm going to allocate my wife 50% of my revenues, me as Chris. And for 40%, and then you remain with 60%. And then for the remainder of my 5 kids, I'm going to give them 10%, 10%, 10% to bring it to 50. You as an individual, you remain with 10% as a government. And then now you decide that out of the 60% that I've given to my wife and kids, I'm going to tax each one of them 50% of whatever I've given them. Does that increase your revenue as the head of that house? Does it? It automatically means that you as a government, now let me now come to the government. It means that the revenues that this government is giving to its people and overtaxing them, actually the government is not realizing anything different. There is nothing new that this government is realizing to ensure that it increases their revenues. So it has given Kenyans 1 million, and then it is taxing, then it's saying that out of the 1 million that we have given you, we are raising our taxes from 8% to 16%. 10%. What is it achieving? We are supposed to be having a more informed discussion towards increasing our revenues other than overtaxing Kenyans. That will be the only solution.
I want us to sit now and talk about the issue of the appointment of the Chief Administrative Secretary, and you've talked about cutting the budget and looking at this number 50 CAS coming to you, Kelly. It's been argued that this is quite a huge number. Is it a huge number from where you sit?
It is very huge. It is a very, very huge number. Because when you look at their salaries, just salaries alone, a CAS receives around 765,000 a month. That is the basic salary. When we calculate the total in a year for the 50 CSs, is around 459 million in terms of salary alone that goes to the CAS positions. Now when you add the allowances, I hear even one receives almost 100,000 entertainment allowance, and then they also have some benefits, like they have two secretaries, a PA, bodyguards. When you add all that, it's a lot of money for us to incur as taxpayers. Why should we incur all that money? And at the end of the day, these people are not adding any value to us. It is a fact that as a country you are represented, and then here you are adding another 50 CSs. It doesn't make sense. And apart from being the role in itself, because in a ministry we have someone called a permanent secretary, and we also have a minister. And in other ministries we even have a tune of 3 permanent secretaries. And then you come and add another one called a CS. And you saw that even in one ministry we had almost 5 CSs. Why? Why the duplication of roles? Why have all those people there? In fact, it makes the government redundant, because the decision making in that particular ministry will be a problem. Because we have the CSs, they want to have their say, they have their own interest, we have the permanent secretaries, we have the cabinet secretaries. So it becomes even a problem to run that particular ministry. So it was ill-advised for the president to do so, and he went against the constitution, for your information. When you saw the ruling of the 3 judges, they stated that first and foremost, the 23 that Uhuru had come up with, they were declared unconstitutional in September 2022. So even for the president to come and add another 27 on top, it was more unconstitutional. The ruling says those ones are even more unconstitutional, because the first part, at least Uhuru did something called public participation. This one, it was not done. So those are the reason why even the court said these people are not supposed to hold these offices. So in my view, I agree with the courts. This is not the right time to have those positions. In fact, the president should be thinking on how to cut down, as he has said, to cut down the wage bill. I was reading somewhere yesterday that our revenues, our wage bill compared to our revenues, we collect 100% and then we use 46% to pay the government officers and officials. Why? That means wherever we are remaining with for development, wherever we are remaining with to lower the cost of living, wherever we are remaining with to pay our debts, is very minimal. So if you were a serious president, he could have cut down the wage bill by reducing the cabinet in itself and also reducing some of these parastatals that we are seeing around. There are so many parastatals that are doing the same role. Duplication of role.
But then even more importantly, Kelly and even Chris, to answer that question that Chris has asked, why do we really need, they are actually called chief administrative secretaries.
Yes, yes.
Why do we need chief administrative secretaries? Why, if you ask me? To answer your question. Remember, even by the very name that they've been given, their role is purely administration. Purely administration.
True.
Aren't there persons within the ministries that have been tasked with the administration of those ministries? There are, of course. Our CSs, the cabinet secretaries, are actually political appointees. They're not technocrats. If you take, for instance, and I say this with a lot of respect to the cabinet secretary in charge of public service. That is a very important ministry insofar as the administration of this country is concerned. But then, if you look at the kind of person that has been put in charge of that ministry, in fact, even since her appointment, have you heard her anyway?
I think I've heard her.
She's come out several times.
I've heard her, no, on social media.
You've not heard her anywhere doing anything of substance to Kenyans. Nowhere. The technocrats we are supposed to be concentrating on the quality of the persons that we put in those offices, not the quantity for purposes of rewarding political stools. So that if we are talking about, and that is what Kibaki came in government with in the year 2002 and 2003. I'm trying to look. The good thing is that in this country we've had the opportunity of looking at the bad examples that we've had in government and the good examples. At least we have fair examples. Let me just not call them good, but then they are fairer. We can compare. Do we need chief administrative secretaries? We don't.
We don't.
And if you look at the technocrats, even within the ministries, the permanent secretaries, we have the PSs. We even have assistants to the PSs. We have researchers to the PSs. The buck actually stops with them. They are the accounting officers. Now, why should we add a chief administrative secretary to go and duplicate roles that have been given to the PSs? And remember, like my friend Kelly has said, we are going to have a chief administrative secretary that will have a driver, you'll have a bodyguard, they'll be given a cook, they'll be given security both in their homes in Nairobi and security in their homes in the village. The ripple effect of appointing one chief administrative secretary is that we are going to have more than 20 people directly in their employment. So that we are not only talking about one person. We are talking about 50 chief administrative secretary times 20 persons that will be working for them or will be working with them. That pushes that number to almost 1,000 people. If we are to extrapolate the salaries that we are going to pay for each of those 1,000 people, we are not talking about a few millions of shillings. For a government where when this administration got into government, they said that the previous administration had exploited everything. Is that a prudent move as a government? My answer to that is a no. It is not. It's not necessary.
And you're talking about that, and the courts have already put a break on the 50 CSAs, and there's a ruling that these positions are unconstitutional.
Yes.
We saw what happened in Uru's regime as well. The court stamped the positions unconstitutional, and the former president went ahead, to try and implement what was against the courts. And later on, that particular act would catch up with him as well in terms of defying of court orders and all that. When you look at what President William Ruto has been presented with in terms of the court ruling terming the 50 CSAs unconstitutional, is it a test on his allegiance to the Kenyan Constitution? And if so, what happens if he tries or rather goes against the court ruling?
The character of the president, of the person that we have as a president right now, is a character of a person that is so deceitful. It is a bit harsh to say that of the sitting president, but then it is the hard truth. It is the character of a president that speaks from both sides of the mouth, and the earlier we call him out, the better. The president will come out and say, or take a particular position today, and take a completely different position the following day. And the worst part of it is that he lies when he's looking to you straight in the eye. And I can tell you, Chris, that it is now annoying. We do not have a president who stands for whatever it is that he says. He only says whatever he says for political expediency. And I think it is high time that we call a spade and say it as it is. I will not be shocked today or even tomorrow if there was disobedience of those court orders coming from this administration. I will not be shocked at all. I will not be shocked at all if this administration would want to circumvent those orders. Circumventing in the sense that they would want to initiate another process to achieve the same goal that has been thwarted by the courts. They would want to give an interpretation of the court orders and devise ways of going around it to achieve whatever it is that they wanted to achieve by the appointment of the 50 chief administrative secretaries. I wouldn't be shocked. And so, insofar as the obedience of court orders, the adherence to the principles that have been stipulated under Article 10 of the Constitution is concerned, and even the allegiance that the president swore when he was given the leadership of this country is concerned, this administration has done exceptionally poor. They've done extremely badly in the in adherence to the tenets of this constitution.
Kelly.
It is indeed a test for him, and I think it presents an opportunity for him to redeem his face to Kenyans and faith that the Kenyans are interested in him. If indeed he wanted these positions to reward these positions to his people, then let him follow the due process. What is the due process? The due process is to amend the Constitution of Kenya, and it starts in Parliament and also public participation. So if he indeed wants to reward his people, and if indeed wants to tell Kenyans that these positions are good for you, they'll add value to you, then let him follow the due process, go to Parliament, start the process, and let the people of Kenya decide, but not him. He should follow the court's order. Yeah.
And when you look at what the Kenyan constitution has been structured, of course it is centered on the Kenyan people, because the constitution gave the Kenyan people the sovereign power, you know, to decide what they want for themselves in terms of their representatives and what exactly they want to do. The president is facing say the power of Kenyans indirectly. If the president today decides that he is not going to, you know, go by what the court says, he's not going to adhere to what the court says, and of course if he appeals that particular ruling, then it means that he do not agree, or rather he does not agree with the courts on what they are ruling at, because you appeal for you to get an ultimate decision, or rather ruling that favors you. So if the government appeals, that means exactly they do not agree with what the courts are saying, and they need these particular positions in place. What will that, you know, mean for the president going forward in his remainder of 4 years, especially for this first term? What will that mean for the president?
Basically, it will mean that the president is he's not ready to protect the constitution of Kenya as he swore. We remember when he said he'll put the Bible down and things will change. That is what we expected. And among the things that should change is obeying the constitution of Kenya through the court's order. And in this case, it will also be sad to Kenyans, because it will mean that Kenyans are on their own. They are not with the government that they voted for. We are on our own. Because we as Kenyans actually do not support the creation of those caste positions, because they have no benefit to us as Kenyans. But as to him, he knows why he's creating those positions, for political benefits. So if he goes ahead and appeals and probably wins, then it means that we are on our own as Kenyans. And as a president, he has declared war to Kenyans. I'm saying declaring war to Kenyans because these positions, as you've said, there are so many, and they come with cost implication to Kenyans. And the burden to Kenyans is already heavy. We are feeling the burden, and we do not want to be added more burden. So if he goes ahead and appeals and wins, it is a sad day for Kenyans. Yes.
For me, I would want to look at it a bit differently and ask the question, who makes laws in this country? It is Parliament. If you look at the three arms of government, it's Parliament that makes laws. The role of the judiciary is merely interpreting those laws that they've made, that the politicians have made. Who initiates those laws? It is the executive. If you look at the legislative making process, the bills originate from the cabinet secretaries. They are the initiators of those bills. And then they go to Parliament for debate and for passage. When it comes to the interpretation of the laws, it is given to the judiciary. Now the judiciary is telling the politicians who occupy the other two arms of government that, hey, look here, that you gave us this constitution, or Kenyans gave these constitutions unto themselves. And over and above the promulgation of this constitution, you have also promulgated other legislations that are guiding this constitution. And these documents that you presented to yourselves as Kenyans is the guiding principles that you have given to us for purposes of interpretation. And so you are supposed to adhere within the confines of these constitutions that you gave to yourselves, or to this legislation that you gave to yourselves. And so if you are going to undertake anything that is outside the parameters of these laws that you have given yourselves, we are going to call you out for that. And that is what the judiciary is saying. That these 50 positions that you are creating are not positions that had been envisaged in this constitution that you created. And I can assure you that even if this matter were to be litigated in the Court of Appeal, unless if the judges in the Court of Appeal are going to be compromised, they will return the same verdict. they will be saying that show us where in the constitution it talks about 50 cabinets, 50 chief administrative secretary positions. Show us the legislation or the government policy that informs this decision that you have taken. And I'm very sure that government would be hard pressed to show to the court where they draw that mandate to appoint the 50 CSS. And to the extent that they will be hard pressed to show where they draw that mandate is where their appeal is going to fail. If they are going to do it kichwangumu, like they have done before, then people power shall prevail. And let this government not underestimate the power of Kenyans. I can tell you that even in other failed democracies, they at one point had very strong leadership. Very strong leadership. Talk about every other failed democracies that you are seeing, including even Somalia. Somalia had a very strong leadership before it went to the dogs. And we can mention very many other African countries within our region that are our neighbors, and even outside. You are seeing what is going on in France right now. It is no different from what is most likely to go in Kenya. We may let them not take the tranquility that we have as a nation for granted. Let them not take the soberness that we have in this country for granted. Let them not push Kenyans to the point where they are going to lose hope.
And I think history is about to repeat itself, because he has said something about what is happening in France. When you go back to the same date in 1990, the same was happening in Europe. The fight for people's rights, election right, and etc. So the same thing is happening today in our country, now that the Azimio has planned the rally and many others that will follow. So if I was the government, it would be prudent for me to listen to the people and to the opposition, whatever they are saying, because these are not good times, and history might repeat itself, the way you are saying. People have lost hope. Wananchi have lost hope. We have nowhere to run to. Then the only place that we'll run to, it is back to this government and face it head on, and you don't want to go there. So I think this is a high time for the government to change the course and the strategy and start focusing on the needs of the Kenyan people before history repeats itself.
Before history repeats itself.
Yes.
Until we have some few minutes left, and as we come to a conclusion, today's particular happenings, of course, we expect what is the climax or rather culmination of the Sabasaba Day, being the protest or rather the rally called by the Azimio la Umoja. What would be your final remarks regarding what has been planned for today, Biko, just to begin anything?
My final remarks as with regards to what has been planned today. Let me first. There's this point that that is ringing in my mind. Let me first just weigh in on it. The narrative that this government gave to Kenyans as at the time when they were campaigning was a very volatile narrative that was sold to a very volatile group of Kenyans, the hustlers. Unlike in the previous regimes where we were told that most of the people who came out to vote were not even the youths, they were the guys of the old age, the people who understood what issues of governance are and where they want the trajectory that they want the government to take. This Kenya Kwanza administration chose on a very unique section of Kenyans to convince to come out to vote for them. This unique section of Kenyans is a very volatile one. Let me use the word volatile. In the sense that, for starters, they're hustlers. Ni wananchi wa mapato madogo. And when you push them, these are persons who who have, let me still use the word volatile. These are people who are still very, very volatile. If you promise them that, and let me analogize using probably the children that we have in our houses. When you promise a child in the morning when you're leaving that you're going to bring them a toy in the evening when you come back, and you don't bring them this bicycle for a toy that you had promised them, you are certainly going to have chaos in that house in the evening when you come back. This is the caliber of persons that this administration chose to take advantage of as at the time of their campaigns. Let them not joke with this group of persons that voted for them when they got into government. Back to the issue about the Maandamano for today. I pray and I hopefully wish that the Maandamano today would be peaceful. That the Maandamano today would bring the real issues to the table. The Maandamano today will be focused. The Maandamano for today would achieve the purpose for why it has been set out, for whatever it is that they have set out to achieve today. That at the end of the day, they are going to give Kenyans a clear roadmap that we set out today in the morning to address issues 1, 2, 3, and we have achieved them. Or we have put in place 1, 2, 3, 4 strategies to achieve whatever it is that we set out to do. I am hoping that the Maandamano today will not be an end to itself. It will be something that will be propagated to ensure, because definitely today, if they were to come out today, they're not going to achieve much in a day for problems that have been created over time. They will definitely need to take a day, 2 days, a week, a month, or even months before they achieve whatever solutions they want to give to Kenyans today. I rest.
Kelly, your final remarks?
Even as we do the Maandamano, mine is on the other side. I wish the government would allow people to peacefully demonstrate. I say allow because in most cases they don't allow. While it is a right in the Constitution, when you try and gather somewhere, they tear gas you. So I think for today, I would pray for a peaceful Maandamano, and a peaceful Maandamano would only come when the government supports. The government is supposed to provide security for these people to Maandamana peacefully, not to fight them. So I'll pray for a peaceful Maandamano, and may the government support it. And even on the other side of opposition, may they take care of their supporters so that they make sure they remain on the cause. Because at the end of the day, you want to destroy someone's property. We are all Kenyans, and we are here for one another. One of us wants the cost of living to come down. Another one wants to sell something in their shop. So we are fighting the common enemy, poverty. So let's support one another. Even if my brother is Maandamanaing and I don't like it, let me allow him to Maandamana, because he has his own right in the Constitution to do so. So let it be peaceful. Yes.
The call is for peaceful Maandamano. If indeed it turns out to be a Maandamano on Friday. All right, and I think that is where we are going to wind up this particular conversation this morning. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making time, despite the cold that is in the capital city.
Yes.
You can even feel it, despite having some sort of warmth in the studio. You can still feel some cold.
Still cold.
And I hope everyone, wherever you are, you're keeping warm. And that's all we had for you this Friday. Our conversation centered on the state of the nation regarding what affects you directly, the Saba Day. We expect a lot to happen today, maybe in a short while or maybe later on in the day. But for now, it's a wrap right here in the Kirk in the Morning. My name is Chris Sambo. See you next week on Friday. Goodbye for now and good morning. Keep warm.